Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Christina and Son Ghost Squad, and the guest tonight is Ghost Mafia, and we're going to be talking about cryptids. So, this is something I know there's a lot of it in this area, and probably the biggest one is Bigfoot
Bigfoot.
or Sasquatch.
And,
Yeah,
and Sasquatch, Bigfoot, they have so many different names in so many different areas. They have they call them skunk apes down in call them skunk apes here in Ohio as well. And there's there's different names for them in different areas, but they're all pretty much Sasquatch.
yeah. Well, there's up on the reservation, local reservation here. It's well, kind of local. Um, they have a spot that has well, it's a small cave. It's not really anything extravagant, but they have like drawings on it, and there is one there of what they called the hairy man. They knew he exists. They didn't bother him. They went about their business, and the Bigfoots went about theirs. And as one tribal member, she did tell me a story. I worked for the uh, tribal Department of Public Safety, and we'd have to, patrol the reservation at night and keep the peace. And but there was one that we had to go off the reservation. It was tribal property that bought it, and this place is haunted. It is haunted. But when they were pulling in the gate one night, they have what they call it. We called the takedown lights. It was a big overhead light, on our light bar, and we'd hit our brights and we'd go through there. Well, one night when they went into the gate, they did that off almost on the other side of the property. They seen eyes looking back at them. So they went and got a little closer, and there was they could see a large figure, and then a slightly smaller figure right next to that one, and in between them there was a smaller one that was probably about 4 feet tall, and it was a Bigfoot family.
Nice. Where
And
was this at?
this was on it's called the Tule River Reservation.
River Reservation.
Yeah. And after that, she refused to patrol there. And I told her, that's your job. You got to do that. And she's like, well, then if I got to go on there, then you're coming with me. Okay, that's fine. And I never see anything, but she was always like, when we were there on patrol, she would refuse to get out, check the doors, and she's like, let's just get out of here. Let's just get out of here. Now, if you take, there's a little dirt road from there that goes further back into the mountains where they have the, I'm not sure how long ago, it goes way back, but there's like a ruins of a big building. And she said, even in the daytime, if you go in there, she says you can feel the evil in that building,
Hmm.
in those ruins. But the thing about that property is it used to be owned by, a man, woman, and they had a little girl. And, it's out there in the mountains. There's not really a bus stop. So the husband was taking the daughter to school one day. Well, there was a drunk driver in a big four-wheel drive that just drove right over the top of the car
Oh wow.
and killed them both instantly. Well, the lady who lived there, she eventually sold it, but I myself, I seen the man in there in that house looking back out on one of our patrols through there. We checked the doors, and he was standing there between the house and the garage. There was like a kind of like a pantry type thing. You had the washer and dryer and all that, and the sink.
Mm-hmm.
And he was standing looking at me through the mirror, and I looked, but he wasn't solid. He was semi-transparent. And we just stared at each other for, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds. And then he stepped back, turned, and started to walk towards the garage. But as he was stepping back and turning, he started to dissipate and just faded. And but if you go in there at night, there'd be the upstairs bedroom. You'd hear the door slam, and they go up and check it, and there's nobody in there. I mean, the house was all locked up from the outside. There's nobody in there, but the door would slam. So that officer's like, when he heard the door slam, okay, you already knew no one was up there. So that was a pretty creepy property.
Oh yeah, I mean, and I live on a piece of property out here in the middle of Ohio, where there's actually coal mine on the property. There was a explosion in that mine, and it killed, how many people was it? 70 some people are still buried in this hillside next to my house. Now, that's just part of the history of the property. There's also a cemetery on the property. There's also an old railroad line that goes through the property and runs for a half mile. And when that railroad was built through this area, they would use Chinese immigrants as slaves. And if they got sick or hurt, they'd leave them in the ditch. They'd leave them there to die. And that's usually where they stay. And so there's a lot of history in this area. Plus, it was a large Native American area in this area. So there's a lot of Indian burial mounds and things around this area. I have actually seen, the one night I was actually out there, it was after we moved in. There was a lot of old furniture and stuff left in the house when we moved in that we got rid of and took out and put on a big burn pile. And I would stand out there at night and just, I was a single man at that point. And I'd just be out there all night by a bonfire all night, drinking a couple beers and just kicking back. So it wouldn't be nothing to see me out there at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, still burning out there in the yard. And just kicking back, relaxing, Middle of the winter, 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. I got a nice big fire going. It's probably somewhere about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And it starts snowing. I look back toward the houses, and I see coming down the driveway and around the house a guy leading a pack mule loaded down with all kinds of just bags and stuff strapped to this pack mule. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing here? And I looked over to my neighbor's house to see if he was still up, because he had just been out there with me about a half hour before and just went in the house. I looked back to the driveway, nothing there. I walked over that way. There was no prints in the snow, no nothing. But I seen that. I seen it myself. Can't say what it was. I've seen things out in this yard, like the one night I'm sitting here. I've got the video cameras going. I'm watching the video cameras and everything. And you're getting a JoJo raid.
Yeah, I seen that JoJo coming in. Thanks,
guys.
JoJo.
Thank you, Raiders.
But I was sitting here watching the security cameras, and I'm watching out in the yard, and I see it had to be at least 8 feet tall, and it almost looked like a tree running through the yard. Like it had long branch arms, long branch legs, and it was literally just like Slender Man running through my backyard. Caught it on the video cameras. When I rewound the video cameras to watch it again, it didn't record it. I don't know why, or it just didn't didn't pick up or something. But when I was watching the live feed, I seen it plain as day, and that was a little creepy. So there's a lot of stuff going on out here on the property. We've actually had, as far as I know, in the time just before I moved here and since I've lived here, there's actually been at least 2 deaths on the property in the last 20 years. One happened last September. It was a car crash right up here, just right out from the front of the house, and somebody died. I was actually one of the first responders on that call, was one of the first people up there, and tried to save the guy. And fire department got there. I started barking out orders. I said, get the jaws down here. We're going to have to cut this guy out. We got to get him out. yada yada yada. We gain access, get in there. We got him hooked up to the AEDs. We're bringing him back. We got him back 3 times, and his vitals every time we just wither away to nothing. And after the 3rd time, the paramedic called it, and he passed right there in the back seat of what was left of that truck. So, I mean, I know there's been a lot of history on this property and stuff, and we have a lot of things happen. Even when we're doing our shows, you'll hear whispering and things coming through the microphones when nobody's talking, or shadow figures dart across the room behind me. You don't see that so much now since I got the green screen up, but when I have the green screen put away and just stripped down, sometimes you'll catch shadow figures dart across the room behind me, and it's crazy stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to the what I started to say about those cave drawings. Now, there was actually another sighting of Bigfoot in that area. I mean, probably 50 yards from where that cave was. But those cave drawings, they had an archaeologist, check into it and all that, and they're estimating that those go back 500 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been, back at least 500 years, and then there's the family or families, probably a whole tribe, still in the area today. So I mean, I know they move around, but
it's crazy that in 500 years, though, that they haven't populated enough to where they're being seen more and more and more. You know what I mean? Through the years, you would think that in a wild animal type situation, sometimes the breeds will interbreed and things like that. But it's like rabbits. You know what I mean? Like the population would explode, and that's what's happened with like the coyotes. Like 20 years ago, you wouldn't see a coyote around here. Now there's a bounty on them. There's so many. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we got a bunch of them in this area, but they're all, you're not going to see them in town. But you start getting out into the farms, then you're gonna hear them.
That's just the thing. In the wintertime, when the food starts getting scarce and it gets cold, they will start traveling to town. They will, at least the outskirts, anyways. But the more or the less that they can find natural food in the wild, they'll start coming and raiding garbage cans and businesses and everything else. They've seen coyotes in town around here.
Yeah, they've well, there's enough that way out in the country. And they got trash service out there now, but a lot of places, the big ranches, they really don't. So there's usually a lot of rabbits. I mean, not so much in the wintertime, but like the summer, I can stand out there and look out the fence, and along the graves, I can see, rabbits running back and forth. And so there's food out there for them, but
with the population explosion, though, it gets hard. They find that food. You know what I mean? And
you can tell that there's at least 5 or 6 of them in a pack, because you can hear each one individually. A little different tone of the voice.
I'll tell you what, summertime out here, when they cut loose, it sounds like there's 100 of them.
Oh yeah, well, the first time I heard them out there there was a bunch of them going off, and they'll get real close. I mean, I've seen them walking. They're probably 100 yards. I don't even think 100 yards away. They're close.
Yeah,
close enough where I could actually see the color. The different colors in their fur. But I mean, the first time they started going off, I was inside of a building, and I come running out because I thought a couple of the employees were fighting and yelling, and I expected this fist fight going on, and it was just freaking coyotes.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever seen anything like in your area, like Dog Man?
A dog man? No, I not that I've never heard any stories of any like dog man in this area. Like the closest thing to anything like that would be the Black Panther sightings over in West Virginia, just on the other side of the river. But not Dogman. They got the Mothman down in Point Pleasant, And that was an interesting story. Um, Back in the late 60s, early 70s, they were having sightings of this humanoid creature with wings. It was like a human with wings, but it was short, you know. And they actually have a photo of this thing on the bridge down there at Point Pleasant. Well, a few hours after somebody snapped this picture of it sitting on the bridge down at Point Pleasant, the bridge collapsed into the river and killed boatloads of people, like dropped cars into the river, people in them.
Oh,
I want to say it was like Christmas Eve or something like that. Yeah, it was like late December. And it was either Christmas Eve or like Black Friday or something like that. But,
yeah, because I think I remember. Yeah, I think it was around Christmas because they're saying the bridge was extra loaded that night
well, yeah,
because of all the people, Christmas shopping and stuff.
when that bridge was built, it was built in a time where they were still running around like Model Ts and things like that, where, you know, a car would weigh less than 2,000 pounds. And, you know, in the late 60s, early 70s, all of a sudden you have vehicles that were well over 3,500 pounds. So the
Yeah.
extra weight of the vehicles and the more vehicles on the bridge, it couldn't support it. It wasn't engineered to withstand that much pressure. And something snapped. It started quaking and just twisted itself, dumped cars into the river. December 15th, 1967. Yeah, there you go. 46 people died.
Yeah, I remember that in the of course the trucks at that time when they designed it, they may be 20,000 pounds fully loaded, and now they're at that time they were probably 80,000 fully loaded. So the trucks are weighing 4 times what it was designed for.
Right. Right. I
I
used
know
to
there's
be a coyote when I was in the Mojave from my barracks window. Kristen says she used to feed a coyote from her barracks window when she was in the Mojave.
Brave girl.
I've been even
Right.
I've been out there a couple times, and I think that's the only way they could survive is if they were closer to a town, because I mean the jackrabbits when we were out there one time, the jackrabbits those things were just flat. We were on quads, and we couldn't keep up with them because that jackrabbit it'd be going full bore, and all of a sudden it'd do a 90-degree turn. I mean, just like a perfect 90 degrees, just like boom, instantly.
Yeah, she said it was a wounded pup.
Yeah, I know we got a couple.
Yeah, that was a little freaky that night. We was actually out doing an investigation not too far from home, and it was one of the nights I didn't take my pistol with me because, again, we wasn't that far from home, and I figured it's just a cemetery when I don't need a gun out there. We got away from the truck and got down in the cemetery pretty deep, and we must have got close to a den or something because them coyotes cut loose, and we was close. And I was like, yeah, let's start heading back to the truck because there's a lot of them and only 2 of us. And I didn't bring my 9mm with me, so.
And we got a couple people around. Oh, I know Cryptids 559. I've been trying to get a hold of him, and because he hits this area, there's been like structures he's found along the Kern River,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know about. And we got a lot of what's that, UFO hunters. They're just south of me also, and that's where they do a lot of Kern County out there in the desert.
Now you're
So-
at which state are you in?
California.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was Nevada or California. I knew it was one of the two.
Yeah, I'm well, it's called the Central Valley, but I'm
Yeah.
on or the southern end of the Central Valley, just north of Bakersfield, and that's Kern County.
And where
So
are
I'm
you
not
at, Christina?
Kern County.
I am in New York.
New York. Okay, so you're opposite end of the spectrum there. So
Yes.
now, do
We
you?
don't have too many Bigfoot sightings here. Um,
Yeah, but you're in New
however,
York. You ain't too far from Jersey and Jersey Devil
like
and
the
all that
Jersey
stuff.
Devil. But however, I moved here in the sticks. Like I'm from Queens, so city girl, right? I moved to Suffolk County in Long Island. So to me, like this is like the sticks, nature out there, um, and we're fixing up the house, and I hear this horrible noise outside, and I go. I don't see anything, but like I see something ruffling the bushes. I'm like, that thing is big. So they're like, oh, it was a raccoon or possums. They're very common. I'm like, I had raccoons and possums in Queens. This thing was big. It was like bear size. And they laughed at me. Yeah, Long Island bears, Christina. I said, okay. I hear this noise one night. It woke me up. I wake up my boyfriend. I'm like, what the hell is that? It's like, I don't know. It sounds like some creature, And I'm like, well, get up and do something. He's like, no. And so I go to the door and I look out my screen door, and I guess it wasn't expecting to see me. So as I look out, this thing darts so fast, and it looked like a big, humongous, I can't even say wolf because it almost had some pig features because it had a really tiny tail and like a bigger nose. So then I'm like, but fast like a wolf, and it wasn't like I never seen anything like it. Since I've seen it, it has never came back. But I before that I heard it, and kind of like I didn't actually look at it, like we didn't look in each other's eyes, so it was around. Once it like we looked in each other's eyes, I never seen it again. I don't know what it is. They make fun of me to this day because I'm like, that freaking bear. I wonder where it went or whatever it was. I don't know what it was.
Have you ever seen a timber wolf up close to see how big they actually are?
No.
I mean, they can get the size of like a Great Dane or a Mastiff. They are big animals
Well,
with
this
great
this
big
had a
paws and like over
big nose.
almost
Do they
like
have big
over
noses?
exaggerated features. They'll look scrawny, but their heads are huge and their nose is huge and their
Oh
paws
yeah.
are
Okay.
huge. But because they're in the wild and they might be malnourished or something, they're scrawny looking, but they're big, tall, lanky like animals.
Yeah, I never seen
They're,
whatever that was. I had never seen it, and I'm like,
when
why
you
is it
see
like
one
a
up
big
close
nose?
and personal, they're kind of weird to see for the first time because you're like, it's just like it looks like a wolf, but it's like, is it part Great Dane or something? Like, you know, they're kind of weird when you first see one in real life. I mean, they don't look like they do on TV because the ones on TV are usually trained dogs that they use in movies and things like that, and they're well taken care of. But when you see one in the wild, usually they might have a spot of mange on them or be malnutrition, really skinny, or you know, it's different to see one in the wild than to see one in captivity.
Well, it was different to see it in front of my house in Long Island. It wasn't like I was. I'm like I'm not like that far in the sticks. Of course, I live in a community, So to me, this big, humongous. I mean, if it stood up, it was way taller than me. I'm 5'2", but it would have been taller. It was just the craziest thing I ever seen. But over here, we have, believe it or not, most people in New York, funny enough, and they're big believers in fairies, all sorts of fairies.
Hmm.
My sister is a big believer in it. She swears she saw it. So they basically she was somewhere and she lost something. And so I'll never find it in the dark. It was like at a party. And then she walked away and she went somewhere else and she found it there, like she just looked down and it was there. So she goes, oh, it was the fairies. So she left them an offering, and they ate it, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, but that could be somebody messing with you. So then they call, they were at where my boyfriend used to live, and they lost the remote, and they're like, oh, God, I wish we could find the remote. and then the remote was on the table, and they're like, it's fairies, and they keep leaving them. So everybody, besides my family, but a lot of people here believe that there's fairies, and they leave them offerings and stuff, and the fairies help them find things and help with their gardens.
I've heard a lot about the. I mean, now those are big over in the UK. A lot of people believe in like the fairies and even leprechauns. They actually believe in that stuff over there, out in the woods, elementals, and things like that. So they're really big in the UK. And to find that in an area where the original colonies were, that doesn't surprise me that people believe that over there. Now you don't hear about that when you start going out west, away from the East Coast. But yeah, I've heard of that. What do you think, Irish?
The elementals, yes, that's what they call them.
Yeah, I was kind of catching a thing, and somebody was talking about fairies in another video I was watching, and they were talking about them being elemental, and they've got 4 basic type fairies. You get the like wind fairies, fire, earth, and water.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, even not all fairies have wings, because they were talking about like gnomes being part of the fae, and but they'd be like more of an earth type of fairy. That's leprechauns would fit in there as well. The earth type elemental. But 'cause I was kind of checking into a lot of other stuff today about the large wolves, the wolf, the wolf man, or the dog man. Is this part of like maybe the werewolf lore? Because if you do have communities of like the dog man, you're going to have some that are going to be peaceful. You're going to have some that are going to be aggressive. Just like humans.
Right.
And
I mean, I don't know if I buy into the dog man stuff like that. I think it's more of it would be some kind of cryptozoology beast that hasn't been discovered yet, that has just been, skated by and not found by science or something like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And I'm sure that, like Bigfoot being some relation between somewhere in the link between man and ape and things like that. And it could be closer than we think.
Well, I mean, if you go back and you start looking at a lot of the stuff like Little Red Riding Hood, you have the big bad wolf actually, in the story, like talking to her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and then if you check into it a little deeper, there's a lot of stories about, wolves that were.
Well, I mean, now it's
500 years.
It's no secret that the Brothers Grimm, the ones who wrote those same fairy tales into their books and things like that, were on opiates at the time that they were writing these things. So, to take into account that, the drug factor and being on opiates, I mean, hey diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, the cow jumped over the moon. Okay, that sounds like an LSD trip type scenario to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that all there probably is some truth to the legends, vampires, werewolves, and things like that. But when you go take it back as far as like, the nursery rhymes and the fairy tales and things like that, you really have to go back even further to like Ring Around the Rosies. Now, Ring Around the Rosies was about the Black Plague. This is a children's nursery rhyme that everybody knows from childhood, but a lot of people don't know where it came from. This was the plague outbreak way back in England, when people were literally going around with carts and picking up dead bodies, where people would just die in their homes overnight. Bring out your dead. Bring out your dead. Yeah, that actually happened. That was Ring Around the Rosies, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. And there's truth to that. There's history behind it. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that everything that is written has truth to it. Sometimes it can be just creative writing. But a lot of things do have some history backing it.
Okay.
I had to study the history of fairy tales in college for my writing course, Krista says. But yeah, as far as like werewolves, that might go back even farther than what we even think. I mean, look at the paranoia of vampires have been going on for hundreds of years. Like literally, there is people that were buried in iron bars, stakes through their hearts because people were in a panic because they thought they were vampires. There was people dug up and then had their heads cut off and stakes driven through their heart and then reburied because vampire scares.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy stuff that has happened through the years.
Oh, there was actually one I heard where they had buried some people inside of like a wall. You know, that's what it was actually for. It was a wall of a city, and this goes way, way back. And they were excavating it, and they found remains, and the remains had a stake that would have been through the heart. And they figured this. What originated is if they drove a stake through the heart, through their torso, that if they were a vampire, they would not be able, they'd be attached to the ground. They wouldn't be able to get out and move around. So even if they came back, they can't move around. That's how. And it wasn't only the heart. I mean, they did like the shoulders and the legs, and I mean, they really went to town and made sure that if this person was a vampire, they were not going to be up and walking around. But a lot of like the werewolf. I mean, yeah, you're right. A lot of the werewolf, that's over pretty much more in the Europe area is where you heard a lot of those. I don't know. The Native Americans. There's a lot of lore and writings and stuff about Bigfoot, but not a whole lot.
And the Native Americans had gods for everything. They had what they called Manitou. Any living creature had a soul, whether it be a tree or a deer or everything had a soul and everything had they literally would praise, and that's why like if you go on to like Indian burial grounds or anything like that, or if you suspect that there's something Native American spirit on your property, one of the things you want to do is plant a fruit tree. You give back to Mother Earth. You want to show an offering because they actually had gods for the trees and the plant life and everything. So to plant a fruit tree is like giving back to Mother Earth, and that can appease the spirits on your property. Offerings of tobacco, things like that, and that can help out in that kind of a haunting situation where you own property on Native American land.
I'm trying to find this one back. That's okay. Yeah, brown dwarf. What about the bones of giants being found and taken away by the Smithsonian? Yeah, there's what is right out here in our desert. There's been the stories of red-headed giants out there. They found remains in some caves. Now keep in mind these giants are only more like Bigfoot size, 7 feet tall, some 8 feet tall. They really don't get that huge, but I mean they still have the red hair. And there's stories of them being like a tribe. But there's during one of my Explorer videos, I stopped and it was I call it painted rocks, and I got my attention on the way to Benny's, and I stopped there on the way back, and I started looking at it, and as I was getting close, I was filming. It's like, this ain't a natural formation, and I'm looking at it. They were like carefully stacked there, and so it's like, okay, there's no way Caltrans is going to spend the money to have somebody design some thing, you know. They're just not going to do it. But I mean, these are like they're different shapes and the way they're stacked. It's like some of them almost look like a bean in shape, and it's like the front and the back is on a is balanced on a rock, and then you can see through from that rock to the rock underneath it. You can see light coming through the other side. So they're stacked and balanced out there.
No, that sounds like a Native American like pointer system, like a directional, like marker. Um, and it's no secret that when they went out hunting, they would go almost 100 miles from their camps sometimes to bring back food. And the way they would mark their paths would be, and that line of sight, you mark those lines, and that would tell you exactly what direction to go to get back to where you came from.
Oh,
When
I mean, I didn't get into it, but these it's going to be more. Yeah, it's going to be more than people doing it because I'm going to say some of these rocks are probably 20 tons
Mm.
ghosts. So it's not going to be it's not going to be just an average human. So if it is, it's going to be, I'm going to say it's probably going to have to be taller than a lot bigger than the 7 to 8 foot variety of giant.
Hey, there's Benny. Hey, Benny.
Because this is probably between 40 and 50 feet tall
Oh, wow.
in areas. And like I said, some of the stones. That's why I'm saying if I can't see Caltrans doing it or anybody else because you would need the large crane.
Hmm.
And it's like, well, how are you gonna you strap it? You're not gonna be able to haul the rocks there because they're not perfectly balanced round
Right.
stones. But these are actually it looked like almost like river stones. You know how they get kind of rounded off on the edges and stuff over time with water. Yeah, that's what these look like.
Hmm.
And all the natural you can see is like one big rock, and it's breaking down over time. It's more
pretty
squared
obvious
off.
that they didn't start out where they're at now. They're literally brought from a river area or where there used to be a river, and they're rounded, smooth stones, stacked and balanced. And we're
Yeah.
talking stones, huge stones, right?
Oh yeah, these would. I mean, you would need a semi, but like I said, the rocks are going to be not like perfectly balanced, so it's going to be hard to move them on the semi.
Right.
I mean, and then so you're going to have a crane going around picking them up and driving them there, and then have another big crane carefully stacking them, and then having someone unhook and hope that it doesn't roll off and kill them.
Well, now I'm going to tell you this story. I swore they had like a guy who had all these big rocks and like he made everything out of rocks. Gorgeous stuff, but big to the sky rocks. And they were like, how did you do this? He's like, I did it by myself. And they're like, how the heck can you move and put together these rocks by yourself? They had a whole documentary. I wish I remember the guy's name.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It's in Florida.
I can't think of the guy's name. He made like basically a castle, and there was like large rocks, literally balanced where he could move them with one hand, and turn sculptures and everything else. Gates made out of 2,000-pound stones that you could open just by pushing with a finger.
Yeah.
And they dared him to. When he was alive, they was like, how did you do this? You couldn't have done this by yourself. And he's like, I'll show you. And he goes in, and literally overnight, there is a huge boulder moved into place and put to where he could spin it with one hand. And this thing weighed over like 2,000 pounds. And he did it at night when nobody was around to see it. Yeah. And there was no way that he brought in a crane or anything like that. He couldn't have. And they speculated that he was like from outer space, or he knew magic and was able to levitate the stones with his mind and this and that. Nobody could actually prove how he actually was able to build such, ornate structures and monuments with such large stones. I'm looking at the chat to see Yes, Coral Castle. That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah.
There you go. Yes, Benny, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah, that was unbelievable to me. But they had like, how did they move these stones? They had another thing on it, and how like Egyptian people and stuff like that would build structures, and between ropes and different kind of pulley methods, regular people were able to move big, humongous rocks. They did this test.
Well, and that's just it. That when they cut the stones, the large stones to build the pyramids and things like that, they were actually cut and then floated down the Nile River. These stones on boats made out of reeds.
Yeah, I've actually, the other day, well, probably within the last couple weeks, was, because I watch a lot of the videos and stuff, they're actually thinking that the Nephilim was, were the pyramids built by the Nephilim, because they could pick up and carry those large stones and, stack them.
Mm-hmm. We'll probably never know for sure because we wasn't there. The only way we're ever going to really truly find out is to invent time travel and go back and see it for ourselves. And which
still waiting for Lou to do that.
It's not impossible. I believe that time travel could be achieved, maybe even in our lifetime. I don't know. More than likely, though, it's going to be a government or something that actually invents it and it'll be kept out of the public's hands.
Yeah, it'll be something that they keep, and it's going to be, and they'll figure out a way to weaponize it.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody that comes into question, they just go back and in their baby carriage, just pop, That's how you weaponize it. I mean, yeah, that's some people think that Napoleon are Bigfoots.
Yeah, see that's a whole another thing too. People mysteriously go missing around boulders and stuff. Well, we got Yosemite. It's probably a couple hours drive from here. That is one of the the missing 411 clusters is in Yosemite, and that's just right up here. So it's like, I don't know if I'd really want to go there with a spirit box and start tapping into that stuff. But and that's that's something else I was going to bring up.
I've been hearing more and more conspiracies about people coming up missing from national parks, and especially out in that area. So I don't know what's behind it. I don't know what's causing it. I don't know why. And I don't know if, how do I want to say it? Okay, so in Japan, they have the suicide forest, bottom of Mount Fiji. And what actually started that as being the suicide forest was a book. It was basically like a romance novel, and people started popularizing that area to go and commit suicide. And now that whole thing has grown into a huge area. People go in there and they'll attach a string to the parking lot and string it out in there. That way, if they change their mind, they can find their way back out. And they'll go deep into these woods, camp there for a little while, and then they'll commit suicide out in these woods. And people will go back about every 3 months. They say they find at least 20 bodies about every 3 months out in that suicide forest. Now, is that phenomenon starting to take off here in the United States? Is it something, okay, they're doing this over there, let's do that over here? I mean, nobody's been finding any bodies in the national parks. We just have a shitload of missing persons. But what happens if they do?
Well, they've been finding bodies, ghosts, but it's usually like miles and miles away. And this is how I was going to bring up, I just remembered, is a lot of times kids will go missing. Sometimes they're never found. Sometimes they are found. And when they are found, a lot of them tell the same story. That basically while they were out there, they didn't starve, they didn't freeze. It's because there was a wolf out there that kept them warm
Hmm.
and fed them. So I mean, I just remembered that. Um, so I mean, what is this? I mean, they're describing it as a wolf. So what is this?
I don't know.
Um, some
I don't know.
people they're found like, and even if they go missing in cold weather, they're found no shoes, no clothes. They'll find the clothes miles away, neatly folded.
Hmm.
What? Why are they disrobing in when it's 35 degrees outside at night?
Yeah, it's. I mean, the elements. I mean, they should have long since passed from exposure if they're out there at 35-degree temperatures all night. You would think that hyperthermia would kick in, and um, organs would start shutting down after a while. And but no, they're. I mean, if they're finding them alive, there's got to be a reason that they're finding them alive. Either they found shelter or they found something that's taking care of them.
Yeah, and these are always little kids, like 4, 5, 6. Young kids. Sometimes they find them dead, but where they find them, it's going to be a lot of times it's going to be in areas that's already been searched 3 or 4 times. Um, Sometimes they're found like a whole mountain range away and at an elevation where you would need climbing gear to get to. So, I mean, how can they travel that far in maybe 2 days time, travel 20 miles and go up to some place that's like 9,000 foot elevation?
Sort of says, I would think Yosemite because the Earth activities, such as volcanic releasing electromagnetic energy or other energies, um, could be causing paranormal phenomena. Possibility. I mean, I don't know. You never know until you explore it. I say go out to Yosemite, check it out. Portals, UFOs, yeah, brown dwarf. I mean, that's what I was thinking when they, if you got a volcano giving off electromagnetic activity in the area, it could be opening portals, and they could literally wander through this porthole and come out a whole mountain range away. It's kind of like a wormhole.
Yeah,
It's a possibility.
but there's been a few adults that they found their way back, and they said, and this is what they said: they were walking in an area they knew, and then all of a sudden they were totally lost. The area they were in was
Changed.
completely different somehow. Yeah, it changed. It was completely different, and they just happened to wander around until they were in familiar surroundings again, and return. But
Hmm. Mhm.
I mean, is this X points? Is this portals? And what exactly is it?
I mean,
Time warps. Because
yeah, time warps, portals, wormholes. Hmm Hard to
Yeah,
say.
because I mean, if somebody's being found in an area that's already been searched, and they're finding the body 6 months later, could someone just disappear and then just leap, like 3 months into the future, and slightly, in a different area?
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know, but I wasn't so big on the believing in Bigfoot. And then recently, on two different places I went to explore, um, two different times I got the EVP Bigfoot.
Hmm.
And the one where I was in, it was a park, um, surrounded by houses. It wasn't like I was in the woods or anything. And they kept saying, warning, you have to go. And then she's like, Bigfoot. I'm like, There's not better be any Bigfoot around here. That's what I said. They're like, no. Um, but really strange that, they were talking about Bigfoot on EVP sessions. Like, one was in the cemetery, one was in that park, and I was like, why?
Unfortunately, I mean, I think there are Bigfoot out there. I believe it.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, until there's irrefutable evidence, and I mean irrefutable, I'm not talking about just footprints, some hair, a little bit of DNA, some scat left behind. You're going to have to find an actual body or have one walk out in front of you and you actually killed the thing before science and society actually steps up and goes, okay, these things really are real. You're going to have to actually physically have one there for study. And whether that be going out and hunting one, or what, and again, these are mammals. These are human creatures. These are alive. They have souls. You don't want to just go out and maliciously murder one.
Well, yeah, I would never think about it.
But
first, if I saw it, I'd run.
But,
the first thing that would not be on my mind was, let me kill this creature that's been around for like longer than I have, and everybody else probably. For science, I would never do it. I might try to take a picture as I'm running, but
I mean, unfortunately, even people are going to scrutinize. People are going to rip that picture apart. They're going to say it's photoshopped, whether it is or not. It's photoshopped. It's faked. It's fiction. It's going to be scrutinized unless you physically have one there. Whether you get it with a tranq gun and actually capture one alive for scientific study, or things happen every day. I mean, look at deers run out in cars, get hit, and they die. What happens? I mean, a deer runs out in front of, say, a pickup truck, and all of a sudden you killed one by accident. But here it is, and you can say these are real. This ran out in front of my truck. My truck is totaled. This thing is 9 feet tall and probably 500 or so pounds, and look at the damage it did to my vehicle. But here it is.
Yeah.
And unless you physically have one, it's not going to be accepted as a real thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even if you get, if you're standing 5 feet away and the thing smiles and poses for you, and you get a picture and video, and people are going to be like, "Oh, that's CGI." And the thing is, they can say whatever they want. They don't have to prove it. It's like, "Oh, that's CGI," and then
no, you have to be the one to prove that it's real by the photo and everything. And it's just going to get scrutinized and ridiculed, and no matter what,
Even the Patterson.
Is, you would know it was real, so
Well, and that, unfortunately, there probably is photos and things out there that people have turned in that were real, but have been scrutinized and ran out of town on a rail, basically, because you just trying to make a name for yourself, or whatever the case might be. But
the Patterson film has been scrutinized, and they took it and they used a computer program to map the joints, because they could sit there and they could still see the detail of the muscle movement and stuff under the fur. And they sit there and they mapped like where the joints were and how things moved and all that. And they tried to get a person to do the same thing. And this was a professional athlete, so he was used to a little more pliable, but it's like he could not mimic the way that walked.
See, the problem with that is you got other people out there that are faking stuff, faking footprints, faking photos, telling people, "Hey, I've got a full-grown Sasquatch body frozen in a deep freezer," and literally he they went out there to thaw this thing out. Before the thing thawed, the guy had disappeared, taken off. He still got a YouTube channel up, right? But he took off, and nowhere to be found. When the freezer was thawed out, it was an ape suit.
Yeah.
He knew it was fake. He got the newspapers and everybody to come in there, and they're trying radically to thaw this thing out. And by the time it thawed out, he was long gone.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that makes it hard on people with real evidence. That's the kind of stuff. It's just like the paranormal world. I can go into a place with a digital recorder and a spirit box, and not even a spirit box. I can go into a haunted location with just a spirit box and record, ask some questions, play that back. Usually get something substantial on that recording. But there's been so many ghost hunting shows on television and people that have faked stuff that, legitimizing that piece of evidence. Oh, you're just another ghost hunter. You're just out to make a name for yourself. That's the problem nowadays. Everybody's out to make a quick buck, and there's too many people out there faking shit. And when they fake shit, it makes it so much harder on the actual ones that want to do it right.
Yeah, and actually get something real, and it's like, and then they're like, oh, well, they used a string or all that, and it's like, okay, where's the string? It's like nobody can find a string, okay. So it's like you got to actually debunk the excuses, and then as soon as you debunk one, somebody else is going to come up with another. Oh, it's fake because of this, and that's all they got to all they got to say. So yeah.
You got the big guys on TV, right? What do they have? A few shows for the paranormal.
Well, and that's the thing with them big
nobody
shows.
Makes real money doing the paranormal. There's a paranormal group here in Long Island, and I was like, oh, cool. You have to pay to join the group. You pay to do everything, and really, it's just so you can go on Explorers because nobody else is paying you. So basically, you're still paying out everything, and then it's like. But then it's censored, and I'm like, no. And then you have to do it on their time, and I'm like, yeah, I could do that myself on a day I have off.
Right.
But yeah, you don't get paid, unless you know how to do a house cleansing, and there's somebody who's really in need of, but then they're gonna get a priest, it's not, they're not gonna call me,
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing when it comes to all this stuff, ghost hunting, UFO hunting, Bigfoot. It's because you got they're doing it on their own dime. We don't have this big $5 million budget that we can put into a 1 month hunt. And it's
we don't have a production studio behind us saying, okay, we want you to go here next. We want you to go here next. But along with that production studio is the pressure of falsifying evidence, falsifying informations, and things like that for ratings. Now, there's a reason why these big ghost hunter channels and things like that on network television have been on the air for 12 seasons. You know what I'm saying? Any true paranormal investigator knows that every time you go out, there's times you go out, you don't get nothing at all.
Yeah.
You're lucky to get something every second or third trip out. And if you were to get something every time out, I'm going to call bullshit every time. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody knows, but you get the big box, networks pushing these guys to go. Okay, guys, we need to get ratings up for next week. So we need a hook for next week. We need to do something big. We need to push something. We need to,
Yeah.
And
So
everything is just like, building up for the next episode.
Yeah, and that's what they do because it's all about the rating. So if they keep the numbers up, then they can keep getting those advertisers to pay big money.
Oh yeah, the advertisers pay big money. Fun. People keep tuning in. Yeah, buddy.
It's like, oh yeah, we had 18 million watching this last week. 18 million people in the U.S. You want to run an ad for 30 seconds, it'll cost you $140,000.
Yep,
Yeah.
easily. And these are the same ads that are getting run on YouTube channels every day.
Yeah.
And the YouTube creators get about 3 cents every time that ad is played.
In entirety.
Yeah. So that's why, guys, when you're watching them videos, watch the ads too. That's how the YouTube creators make their AdSense money. If you watch the videos, they get paid.
Yeah, it helps out watching the videos because I can guarantee you every video you watch where someone goes out into the field, it's going to be at least between $25 and $50 for that 15-minute video that somebody's pulling out of their pocket. And if they go on a big road trip, it's going to be even more.
That's the
Probably
thing. Like when you're a smaller YouTuber and you're just starting out, you really are viewer supported. You know, when you first get monetized, you rely on like the super chats from the people that watch your videos and the donations that come in to get better equipment, to put out better content, put gas in the vehicle to get to explorations, ghost hunts, you know, whatever. And every time we go out, you know, you're talking, even if we stay close to home, that's a quarter of a tank of gas. That's at least $10 there. And then you're buying batteries for cameras. You're buying, you know, maybe if you're lucky, you got a little extra money, you can buy a new piece of equipment every now and then. And yeah, it's basically your viewer funded. And, you know, all the super chats, all the donations, things like that really, really do help. Because unless you've got, you know, 40,000 subscribers, you're not going to make any kind of substantial money on YouTube. I can guarantee, I can attest to that.
No, well, I can tell you that when me and John went out to the desert and we hit the hotel, and I got 2 other videos out there, I went through a minimum of $150 that weekend. And I know John went through more because he had the rental car and the gas.
Mm-hmm.
So he was probably close to 300.
Yeah. Yeah. And like literally, I just did a lock-in at the West Virginia Penitentiary. And, you know, those bigger venues, bigger haunted locations like that, they charge. It was $180 for me and my wife to be locked into the West Virginia State Penitentiary for that night to put out that video. And yeah, $180, and that was just for the tickets to get into the penitentiary. That's not gas getting over there, eats or anything like that, drinks. Because we were literally locked in that prison for like 8 hours, and it was 120 degrees inside that place. It was sweltering hot. At one point, I literally had to leave one room. In fact, I was with Dodgy from Tennessee Wraith Chasers, and I had to leave the room from doing a spirit box session with him because it was so hot. I had to go and sit down. I was getting overcome with the heat exhaustion, and had to go sit down and drink some water and literally, I mean, you guys don't realize this sometimes out there, but you know, health issues, especially when you're getting up there in years to put out some of this content. Sometimes we sacrifice even our own bodies and our own health to put out content. So, you know, it's legit. You know, when I see Benny Loco out there walking through deserts and things like that, taking the risk of getting bit by a rattlesnake, you know, it's crazy. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we do to put out videos and stuff for entertainment values.
Yeah. You have to listen really, really close when you're out there, because I mean, even on the few explorers I was out, when I was on my own on the way back from out there, I stopped and did just like, you got to listen, because if you get bit, and you're out there by yourself, you got nobody else to count on to drive you, 150 miles to a hospital.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. Like, I don't have anybody to go with me usually, so that's why I'm kind of been doing like cemeteries and parks and preserves and places where there's still people, but there's not a lot of people. Um, Although some of those cemeteries nobody goes to anymore. But even that, you never know what could happen. I was at that park by myself. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. And thank God that I had that scary EVP where I said, okay, now I really have to go. Because you don't know what can happen. And then like you said, I only have 500 subscribers, so I don't get any money from YouTube or anything else. I work a full-time job, so this I do on the side. Usually I do it with my son. Right now for the summer he's at his dad's, so I've been doing it because um, but next week I'm gonna go over there and do something with him. But it's hard because I need the money then to travel over there. I need, so I need to take time off from work if I'm gonna go somewhere where I don't drive. So if I can't take the train or something, so yeah, it's rough. And then finding someone to go with you. Like sometimes I can find somebody. Like sometimes my sister will go with me. My sister is more the scientific type who wants to debunk everything, but she'll come with me, but she works too. Everybody works. The schedules are different. So, yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, I really want to go there. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. And then I think about it. I go, I shouldn't go there alone.
Well, that's one thing when we were at the hotel, because Herman's always, he's been like real skeptical of the paranormal. And Herman was there with me and John. And so, like I said, he was a skeptic. He was a skeptic. So he went in that hotel, skeptical. But I mean, there's things that we didn't get on camera that, I mean, when he left there, he was like, and he said it. He says, I was a big skeptic. He goes, after tonight, seeing the stuff that went on, and nothing was faked. He's like, I believe in the paranormal now.
Yeah, so, we made a believer out of Nero Trigger that night at the penitentiary, and yeah, he was pretty freaked out in that sugar shack that night when that spirit box started talking to him. He went from a skeptic to a believer real quick when it started talking to him, and it told him to leave, it told him to get out and all that, and he's like, he says, what's wrong with me? Why don't you like me? And the spirit box says, you're black. And he's like, oh, hell no, I'm out. And he left. He got up and left. He got up. He's like, nope, I'm out of here. See ya. Goodbye. I'm going out to the courtyard by the chapel, and I'll be there. And he left.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only way to really, get skeptics to believe is, okay, you come here and you witness this. I mean, you can watch a video and say, oh, it was a string. Oh, this was done. That was done. Okay, you're right here. You're seeing that there's nothing manipulating this item or manipulating that item. It's things are moving and there's absolutely nothing around it. And that's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
On that, I'm going to go ahead and wind this down. I want to thank Ghost for coming on.
Hey, not a problem. Anytime.
And I know I hate to do it with so many people in here, but I'm going to try to keep.
Do you want to take some? Do you want to ask them if they have any questions?
Yeah, if they have questions.
Yeah. If there's any questions, go ahead and ask. We'll go for another 7 minutes. And so if anybody's got some questions. Yeah, I think that's what it takes. But he left. He's now a believer. He says, I won't believe everybody's video. He goes, but I know the paranormal is real now. So we're waiting. I know there's about a minute delay on here, or almost a minute.
Is there that big of a delay with the StreamYards?
It is quite a. Oh, there is quite a.
It looks like it is on my phone because I'm on my phone reading the chat. So it looks like there's a little delay from where we are to the chat.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, John, welcome.
HSFL.
because John got some. I'm not going to say what he got, but he got some really good stuff that it was like, I mean, some EVPs and manipulating devices.
Well, Irish, if you don't mind me saying, we were working. Well, we've been actually working most of the day trying to get Kelsey's Paranormal to her 1K today. We actually got her to her 1K. She's just barely over that, but we'd love to get her a little bit of a buffer. So if you guys out there in the chat know who I'm talking about, Kelsey's Paranormal, go over to her channel, hit that bar, ding that bell, drop a like on one of her videos, and leave her a comment so she can get back to you. And like to get her that buffer where she stays at that 1K. She's trying to be able to live stream from her mobile device before she goes to Brushy. So, and we actually had Lady Swan was going through the same thing a few weeks ago, and everybody kicked in and helped get Lady Swan to 1K. So we're trying to return the favor and help Kelsey's Paranormal out, get her to that 1K mark. So, guys, if you know who I'm talking about, yep, and there's Diary of Her Mind with Kelsey's Paranormal's link there. Thank you, Kels.
Brown Dwarf.
Or,
What I do an EVP from Yosemite. If I had somebody to help me carry my stuff, because I don't fare too well on mountain trails anymore. I got a real bad knee, so that slows me down on that. So I mean, if I had somebody to go with me and help carry the bag and my equipment, it's a possibility.
I definitely want to get out there maybe next summer. I know David Oman has invited me out to his place to go out there with like HSFL and a few others. And Uber Goober is really hounding me, telling me to find out how much a plane ticket out to Washington would be. So, and I know there's some places up there, and I'd love to go meet up with Uber Goober lady if you're out there lurking the Uber. Love, Mama.
Okay, John, definitely. Paranormal in Yosemite. Okay, John. You know, we both have the same days off. Somebody said they had a question, but they didn't retype it in, and it's...
I have a theory that dreams, clairvoyancy, drug use, and shamanic way, and some instances of mental illness may all release the same chemical doorways to the spiritual planes.
Well, yeah, they used to, like the Aztec, they used to use, like mind-altering drugs in certain situations inside their temples to communicate.
I would like to know if any sort of studies have been done about my theory. Actually, there have been studies done by the U.S. government, but this was, they was trying to weaponize that kind of gateway. It was called remote viewing. They were able to put people into a meditative state and have out-of-body experiences for spying purposes. And in fact, they made kind of a spoof movie about it with George Clooney. It was called The Men Who Stare at Goats. But there is actual truth about the story behind that spoof movie. So if you watch The Men Who Stare at Goats, now, mind you, they're kind of making fun of it, but the story behind it is legit. The U.S. government actually did have a program where they practiced remote viewing and was able to have people that would be able to tell inside of buildings and things like that where they've never been before and give details about plans and paperwork and everything else that they had seen during their remote viewing.
Yeah, I can't remember what the program was called, but it was CIA. Mm-hmm. CIA did it, and they also would do research in like mind control, and like the remote viewing and all that stuff, and psychic abilities and stuff. And I just can't remember what the name of that program was. But
Watch that movie with George Clooney. It's called The Men Who Stare at Goats, and it's actually kind of a documentary about the program and what they was trying to do, but they make light of it. So keep in mind that it's a movie and they make light of it because they want you to think that it's craziness. You know what I mean? But there is truth to the story.
Okay, that. Okay, we're at 1 hour 15. I'm going to go ahead and my battery's getting low too. I'm going to go ahead and end this stream. You guys want to hang on until after I end.
Yeah, we'll hang out for after call for a few.
After that. So if you guys would like to say, your sign off line before I end the stream. We'll start with Ghost.
All right. Let's see. How do I want to say this? Bigfoot, Jersey Devil, Mothman. They're all conspiracies, and they can all be traced back to Dog Ham. Dog Ham. That's where it's at. Christina knows. She's got the shirt.
Yes, I do. I ordered another one, so I will have two.
Oh, sweet.
And I flashed my dog ham to Lou.
Actually,
on a live stream the other day. I was like, look at my dog ham. I had the shirt on. They were like, oh my God. Funny enough.
You can find that same Dog Ham shirt over in my Teespring.
Check it out. It's very cool. Guys, I wanted to thank you guys today. I hit 500. So I was really excited. So thank you guys, because I know a lot of you guys are subscribed to me.
Jojo.
So I appreciate it, and I'll see you on my next adventure.
And definitely want to thank JoJo Walker Unplugged for the raid that she did on us at the beginning of the stream.
Yeah, definitely, JoJo. Thank you very much.
You guys who don't know JoJo Walker Unplugged, get over to her channel, hit that bar, ding that bell, drop a like on one of her videos, and leave her a comment. She's trying to get to that 3K mark.
Okay, guys, I want to thank you all for coming in. Keep an eye out for the next one. I will be doing, after this, I will be doing another stream later, probably in about an hour. And we're going to try to get Foxy Escapes. We're trying to get her numbers up a little bit.
Awesome.
So we're going to be doing that. But until then, everyone, have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Sleep well. And until next time, stay safe.
Dog Ham.